I'm your host, Brandy Fleck, and this is Human Amplified. We're on a mission to revamp society by amplifying your humanity. This week on the show,
my name's Dan Strelan, and I'm from the Blue Mountains on the east coast of Australia. When we allow our feelings to be felt in the body with loving awareness, the hidden wisdom of our body emerges and we can truly grow. For me, life becomes much more interesting on that path of self-discovery. Things do move around in circles. It seems to be the same in the gut. In the end, it comes down to you.
This week's guest is Dan Strelan. He's a health coach and nutritional medicine expert who lives in the beautiful Blue Mountains of Australia. He gathers his own spring water and showers in waterfalls, guys. You really get to experience his calming, creative, and thoughtful personality in this interview as he leads us through a philosophical exploration of our own meaning-making in life to the science behind ingesting worms to heal your gut, a journey he's personally been on in addition to his clients to heal from gluten intolerance and sensitivity. We start out this episode philosophizing about the meaning-making humans imbue on all aspects of life. Dan takes us through different perspectives that he rates on a scale of effectiveness in helping us alleviate suffering. We spend a bit of time establishing the foundation of the entire discussion. That is, uncovering our true human nature is a lifelong self-discovery process that includes physical, mental, and emotional well-being in order to thrive, to bring out our true nature. We explore how that well-being increases when we align ourselves with the natural cycles of our world, the earth, the seasons, and recognize that we're part of a living ecosystem. When the ecosystem flourishes, we do too. To the contrary, we also explore how our well-being can decrease when we're out of alignment with the natural flow of the earth, and how many of our societal systems and cultural conditionings have taken us away from our true nature and nature in general. As part of this human nature in alignment with nature discussion, Dan gives us tangible advice for awakening to our own truth, healing our gut through Helminth therapy, that is, ingesting a certain type of worm that restores our gut ecosystem, and for how creation plays a role in healing our bodies. We wrap up with exploring how the natural cycles of order and chaos in life parallel co-creating music. When you jam with other people, unprescribed, you experience cycles of order and chaos. When you trust the cycles and let go, you find the freedom of creative flow. Ultimately, Dan says the starting point for healing our bodies is by truly listening to our emotions. Then the hidden wisdom of our bodies emerges, and we can truly grow. Throughout this episode, Dan gives us so many gems and a host of informational resources. So feel free to check out the show notes for links to those and learn how you can work with him. You're really going to love this discussion. Hey guys, this is the second to last episode of Season 3 of the Human Amplified podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for an exclusive interview with the wonderful Hannah Mermaid. Help us end Season 3 on a high note by subscribing if you haven't already so you don't miss any bonuses that come out after the season ends. And leave us a rating and review. We love to hear from you. We love to know how we're doing, and we love to know how we've impacted your life. And we love to know what you want for Season 4 and in the blog that will run after we wrap up with Season 3.
As I said, I'm Dan Strelan. I do live in the beautiful Blue Mountains in Australia, and I was drawn to this part of the country for the fresh air, the ability to collect my own spring water, and the tangible experience of seasonal change in a temperate climate, because I grew up more in a subtropical part of Australia, and also for the beautiful community that I've found here. The way of life is totally different to the city, and after a while, you take it for granted to be surrounded by eucalypt forest. I take showers often in waterfalls, swim in lakes. In the summer, that is, it does get quite cold in the winter. It's pretty normal to wear your trackies into town and to meet a friend and eat your lunch at one of the many stunning vista points that tourists travel miles and even cross oceans to see. So I love to travel. So I moved to a place in my homeland it's an obvious travel destination. It's also great for rock climbing, which I'm really into. I'm moved by beauty. I love music. Yoga is a part of my life. And I have a thing for Taoist medicine and Qigong practice as well. And yeah, I run the Sovereign Medicine Foundation, where we love to help people with gut health, sleep, mood, and overcoming pain. But ultimately, our mission is to get you connected with the medicine that lies within and to guide you into self empowerment.
Fantastic. How delicious is the spring water that you get?
It is immaculate. It's so incredible. It's very soft, and you can, yeah, almost feel the environment, the nature that surrounds it. There's a few good springs up here, and yeah, subtle differences, but very clean and pure.
Mm, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. What about you? Do you have spring water in your area?
Oh no.
You're in town?
Yeah, we're just a little, maybe about 10, 15 minutes outside of a big city.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's definitely not like anything you described. That was a really great description of who you are. And I think it really gives our listeners a good idea of your essence and what we're going to be talking about today. So I would love for you to sort of dive into your mission at Sovereign Medicine just a little bit, because I saw on your website that you want to guide humans back to their true nature. But as you know, I'm on a quest to figure out what is our true nature. So
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
Yeah, great. I love that. And it is part of the process and the journey. And I suppose the question can be more interesting than finding a specific answer to nail down upon. My yoga teacher from the Himalayas says that our true nature is joyful, playful, expandable, and fearless.
Mm.
And I like that. So when we get engaged in practices or work with medicines that bring us into balance, into homeostasis in the body and equanimity in the mind, some of those qualities may emerge, and each person has their own unique essence. And to get in touch with that requires deep listening and often a cutting away of conditioning. We take on roles in life, but when we have the intention of living an authentic life, it's helpful to come with gentle curiosity to the process of self discovery. And we can look at examples of extraordinary humans and our teachers to perhaps have a glimpse of what's possible for our potential as human beings. But to go deeper, we've got to find something that's within us and breathe it into form.
Well, that's wonderful. And I feel like that makes sense. I really like what you had to say there. And I would like to go a little bit more into what is sovereign awakening.
When we talk about sovereignty, what I'm talking about is our connection to ourselves, our connection to the divine, but yeah, ultimately your self empowerment that's found at the center of your being. And every culture has a set of rituals to initiate a child into a collective story. And it's often said that in Western culture, we don't have those initiations. Yet we still usually put kids through schooling, possibly religious influence, and also like medically as well. There are rituals where we're taken to doctor's clinic and jabbed in the arm, usually when our parent is distracting us,
Mhm.
and then rewarded with a lollipop. So I know that's a very hot and polarizing topic, and I've often wondered why that is. And I think that there's a moment there where we learn to trust in external authorities rather than our own instincts. Yeah. And in some indigenous cultures, they may inflict harm for a reason, for a purpose that they have consciously chosen, to set up that child's life or their journey, usually as a teenager into manhood or womanhood. I suppose in our culture, we were kind of not aware of that. We're unconscious of those rituals. So coming back to sovereign awakening, I guess at some point in life, most of us go down a particular track and follow the status quo. And for some of us, we begin to question that
Mhm.
and begin to question what we're taught, what we see in media, even our family stories. And so Yeah, sovereign awakening is firstly awakening to that fact that in the end it comes down to you. You're the one that is telling the story of your life, and you get to, you're the director as well. You get to call the shots, and you can look outside for wisdom and knowledge and expertise in areas that are not your strength. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is up to you to choose what resonates and discard what doesn't.
Mm, okay. So if I circle that back to just human nature for a second,
Yeah.
you said that some of us just keep going with the status quo and some of us begin to question. Do you think that we have to have that awakening in order to discover our true nature?
It seems to me that, yeah, as small people, as children, babies, we connect with the environment and the people around us. We take in all of that information before the sense of self is really formed. So in a way, you can imagine we come in with a clean slate, and perhaps in our DNA there's this latent soul potential, or this blueprint for our life, for what essence we're here to bring, to contribute to this dreaming, to this story. And yeah, and for some reason we go down a different track of absorbing the information of the society around us. And sometimes if that lifestyle works really well for you,
Mhm.
it might take a breakdown, later in life for that emergence to happen, and for you to dig a little bit deeper. So yeah, I suppose perhaps we do absorb that cultural information, with the purpose of transmuting it when we do begin to stand in our sovereignty and our sense of self, to discover what that is, which is a process, and a lifelong process as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess for me, life becomes, much more interesting on that path of self discovery, rather than just sort of following a prescription.
Yeah. Okay. So as we talk about the path of discovery and the search for, enlightenment and who we are and all those things, it seems like that humans have a relentless search for meaning in all that we do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it does seem to be the case, whether we are aware and focused on that or not. And there's been books written about it. I haven't read many of them. I have read the wisdom teaching of Ecclesiastes, which is found in the Old Testament in the Bible. I found that one really interesting when I was in late teenage years. It was somehow different to the texture of the rest of the Bible. It stood out. I guess maybe it's kind of nihilist or something, but the teacher proclaims that everything is meaningless. And he actually has the experience as a wealthy ruler of having all of the resources at the tip of his fingers to call in the experiences that he wanted to have in life. And yeah, with the search of some kind of underlying inherent meaning or fulfillment, he concludes that it's best to live a simple life and enjoy the changing of the seasons, enjoy your intimate relationships, family life, and to remember your creator, your connection. And so I think that that's profound. And I heard that early on, and maybe 10 years later, I had a more tangible experience of that through some personal development work that leads up to a particular point where the everything is meaningless drops in. I've heard it discussed in more new age circles since then as well. But when you get that, it's completely liberating. It can sound scary at first, but
Hmm.
what what it means is that we create meaning. I'm just creating it right now, actually.
Okay.
We can see that we've created all of the meaning to understand and interpret our life, and often that creates limitation. It creates pain and suffering. All of this search, all of this meaning making can create suffering. So when we come into that 0 point and understand that there's actually no inherent meaning in the universe at all. Now that might not be true,
Mm.
but if you come from that point, just stand in that possibility for a moment, the field opens up and you can drop some of those old stories and you can begin to create new meaning, new direction for your life. And then finally on I consider the when I read Stephen Harrod Booner's work on plant intelligence and the dreaming of the earth, he said that everything it's more of the animist perspective where that everything is actually imbued with meaning, and it's our role to interpret the meaning in our lives, which is highly creative and intuitive, to tap in to this sea of meaning. Yeah, I find that very enjoyable as well, and perhaps the everything is meaningless puts us more in that kind of Buddhist Zen Taoist like emptiness, and
Mhm.
the animist perspective is perhaps a bit more feminine and creative and flowing and colorful. And yeah, I suppose if that gets murky and messy, then we can drop that and come back to that 0 point, realizing that it's a game, it's a movie, it's for fun.
Okay. So are you saying that both extremes are probably true? Like they have a time and a place in our lives, and I guess everything in between?
For me, it's about how those perspectives are useful, or more so than if they're ultimately true or not, because it's a paradox, and I'm comfortable to hold a paradox
Mm.
because, as I said at the very start of this call, the question's often more interesting than having an answer, because you can deepen more and more into this understanding, into this wisdom, into the not knowing as well, and the mystery, really. So, yeah, both of those perspectives are useful, meaningless in that you can drop all of the story and put yourself in the creator seat and consciously create your own meaning. And then, yeah, seeing life, seeing, people, objects, flowers, nature as symbols, as holding some meaning. I think the key here is to remember that we ask ourselves, what is the meaning of this symbol? And allow the information to come through. And it's not about getting that right or wrong, because we have the freedom to create our own meaning.
Mm. Okay. I think this relates to what I'm about to ask you, but I feel like we do have the freedom to create our own meaning. And that was just an amazing concept and thought that you put out there that I think a lot of people might struggle with, because having to make a living, having to do things a certain way to just sustain life in the society we've built is sort of restrictive. So, in your opinion, why is consumerism and capitalism so restrictive to embracing our own nature? Or for you specifically, how does it hinder you from embracing your own nature?
For sure. And you touched on a few key elements there. Yeah. So I guess what you're talking about is there's the power of our emotions and our feelings. Yeah. Because when we create meaning, there's usually feeling involved in that. And so, you mentioned the jobs, the positions, the responsibilities that we have. And it's scary. It can be scary. It's not inherently scary, but we do get scared when we question the structures that support us, because they have supported us. And sometimes I've thrown them away too quickly. And it's been,
Mm.
the fear of that has been overwhelming, and I've made choices that are perhaps not healthy or supportive, not really, a safe container for my growth. So yeah, we have to understand that there's a part of us that has believed in this story, believed in our conditioning, identified with it so strongly over our entire life until we sort of wake up. It's not that we just come out of this dream and go, oh, great, that was just a dream. it may actually be your path, and you can keep your job, your goals, your, career goals, your goals for your life and investments and family and all of that, and live, you can live a suburban life if it feels really alive and nourishing for you, as it does for some people, and breathe in new life into that. But yeah, on consumerism and capitalism, the reason is found, I believe, in the story of competition and of lack. Like most kids seem to be, I mean, maybe a few kids seem to be competitive and dominating and controlling and possessive early in life. But I think those traits are mostly learned. And I reckon that most of us come in with a spirit of generosity and with a heart for sharing. And in our capitalist system, it perpetuates a ladder or a caste system.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep it alive, we're called to engage in that way of life, which is, restrictive to that generous nature, and the power flows to the top of the ladder. And I guess those at the top of the ladder, they really need to go out of their natural alignment to maintain the system. Or it could be that their souls are inherently negatively oriented to self-service at the expense of others. It could be true. And if it is, I still suspect that they must be quite lonely and fearful, needing to uphold that story of separation
Mm.
and competition. So in consumerism, this is the business of feeding hungry ghosts. It's the story of there's never enough, or something outside of me will complete me. The money or the car, the fame, the fortune, the holiday, the lofty position, the holy grail. And it's like that image of the donkey that's always chasing the carrot that's just out of reach. The earth is consumptive. We eat and digest and transform and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say that? feeding
Yeah.
feeding the soil where our food grows, and it's cyclical. So when we're in touch with the rhythms of nature, we come into harmony with ourselves and understand the built-in mechanisms that are there to support all of life here, all of it. And in old times, we would fast at the end of winter, as there would be no food left in the storehouses. And when we engage in similar practices now, there are tremendous benefits for our bodies. But yeah, there's always enough.
Mm. This is really cool because I think I just made a connection from what you're saying now to something you were saying in the beginning, which is when we are stable, isn't the word, or when we're confident in our own nature instead of being fearful with an inferiority complex, then we work with nature as opposed to against nature. And so maybe like our systems of consumerism now are working against nature because we're fearful, because we've lost touch with that.
Absolutely. And I guess some of these concepts, philosophies, for me, I'm drawing on the work of Charles Eisenstein with Sacred Economics, and in that beautiful book, he goes on to explain how our economy doesn't really reflect, well, firstly, the cyclical nature
Mm-hmm.
of life, of the earth. It's a endless trajectory or ascent. So I guess I said there's always enough, but things do move around in circles. So sometimes there is a contraction in life, at other times there's an expansion. So our economy has, and it's changing now, it seems, after
Mm-hmm.
seemingly like it feels like a decade of just stagnation on the real issues. But it hasn't really reflected value in having nature exist for the sake of it, in having
Mm.
resources left in the ground, because it is best for the ecosystem if they're there. And that means it's best for us because we're part of it. We're not separate.
Yeah.
So I would say that if we just looked at one way that we're out of alignment with Mother Nature, it's that Yeah, that we're not in touch with the seasonality in life.
That makes a lot of sense. Would you say there are parallels between human nature and Mother Nature? Like, are there cyclical things within us that sort of mimic where we come from, the earth that we come from?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. It says as above, so below,
Mm.
or as within, so without. So,
As within, so without has been something that's been coming up for me in the last several weeks. So it's really cool that you
mm,
just said that. It's been sticking in my head.
at some point, I might tell you a story about intestinal worms, and you might start to understand how yeah, I actually use the symbology of the seasons to connect with the body, and to yeah, when I create my programs as well, I do refer to seasons in yeah, in a metaphorical way, as well as what's actually going on outside in the world, but to yeah, guide somebody through that process and help to connect things back up.
Yeah. Okay. So I am really excited to hear that story. And so do you want to go ahead and jump into it?
Yeah, cool. So you want to know all about what we do with Helminth worms?
Yes. Yes. And I don't know a lot about it,
Yeah.
but I know that I've seen you like praise all of the benefits. So I would love to know what's behind that.
Yeah, we can talk about the worms.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a new field of research that's emerging, and I call it Helminth therapy. Helminth is the word for worms that live in your body. And if you Google it, you'll probably find some information about parasitic intestinal worms and how to get rid of them. So yeah, as I said, bringing them in intentionally into the ecosystem is relatively new in the last 10 or 15 years. So in the developing world, people have too many worms in their gut and it can cause malnutrition. But in the West, due to hygiene practices and anti-worming medications, we actually have a worm deficiency. And so autoimmune disease is rife. Seems to be a link there. So food allergies, leaky gut, irritable bowel syndrome. And yeah, it's also indicated in mental health and anxiety, depression, but also autism and ADHD. There's research as well as clinical application, yeah, into these conditions. So if we think of helminth worms as a predator in an ecosystem, it's like a wolf. So in every ecosystem, there's a keystone species that exists to act as an emperor and to maintain the order. So in the 1920s, they culled a lot of wolves in Yellowstone National Park, and the ecosystem just fell apart. I think there were too many
Mm.
deer, and the beaver population were out of control. And so the waterways changed and suffered. And I think a new opportunistic predator might have moved in as well that were not so beneficial.
Mhm.
When they introduced wolves more than a decade later, the situation reverted very quickly to its original glorious state. So it seems to be the same in the gut. We use it's called HDC helminths. It's a specific strain that's made in a lab. It's not as simple as eating some worms from the garden. It's also a very clean application. It comes in a small vial of liquid of just saline solution. And you see these little dots, which are the little eggies. And you
Okay.
mix that in coconut oil and swallow it down. And then they'll start to activate and proliferate in your gut. And these ones actually die off after some time, which is good because there's research with hookworm which shows great results, but that one actually it colonizes the body and causes all kinds of side effects. That is a brief little intro into what they are and what they're for. Yeah.
And so do you use this personally, but do you also give these to clients and help people with the worms?
Yeah, I do. So for me, I discovered helminths when I was studying, or after studying actually, studying a nutrition degree, nutritional medicine
Mhm.
at Endeavour College of Natural Health in Brisbane, and stumbling across a webinar with this woman called Denise Hales. Denise is a senior naturopath and lecturer at the college, And I'd say she's a leading clinical expert on Helminth therapy in Australia.
Okay.
There are some other academics like Paul Giacomin studying with the hookworm on gluten intolerance at JCU in Australia. But they have the goal of inventing a pharmaceutical product where Denise actually treats the clients, with the worms, like I said, and she gets incredible results with that. So, I found out about it a few years ago. I took a few doses. I was very enthusiastic about the prospect, and there's just something about it that felt really cool and fun. When you first take it, there can be this awareness, especially if you're sensitive, that there's something going on. There's like a new sentient life form that's come into the ecosystem in your gut biome
Okay.
that's starting to change and communicate, and just think of it a bit differently, as well as feel kind of like this little warm flame or bubble. Sometimes bubbles through the intestines for the first days, but it kind of
Okay.
seems to sink into the background of the experience as you go along.
Yeah.
I was just enthused by the imagery of it, really, of seeing these worms go in and make good soil in our gut, because the gut is the earth element. I've heard it described as more specifically as soil. All of these pieces, sort of this narrative,
Mhm.
click together in my mind. For me, that narrative is more fun than scientific discussion, but there's heaps of research that we can troll through as well. And then the clinical application, the results that we get is where the evidence is for me. So a friend of mine asked me last year, someone who had been taking the worms for 3 years off of my recommendation. He said, "Hey, Dan, have you actually tried the worms? Because it's changed my life." And so I thought, okay, it's time to give this a proper go.
Mhm.
So I set out midway through 2020 with, the goal of reversing my gluten sensitivity. And it blew my mind to see that my symptoms go from, like 11 out of 10 suffering
Mhm.
after having a little bit of gluten to 3 out of 10 after forgetting to order the gluten-free option at a cafe.
Mhm.
I noticed it went down to 3 out of 10 just after just one dose, and then after the next one, down to 1 out of 10 to almost nothing after, having 2 or 3 doses, feeling like just having, normal symptoms.
Yeah.
And I'd had that gluten intolerance I was aware of it for at least 8 years and had been kind of doing my best most of the time to avoid all kinds of different foods. But it really, when I first discovered it was working, it felt like this beautiful coming home, like coming home to my body, and to trust that the food's not out to get me.
Yeah.
It's actually there to love and to nourish me. So I suppose I also realized in this journey that a lot of the treatment options out there for gluten sensitivity or gluten intolerance,
Mhm.
they're not really addressing any underlying problem. It's basically symptom mitigation, that we have this condition now, and so we need to avoid gluten. And there's even narratives about why gluten is corrupt and evil and no one should have it. However, when I had this correction made, it felt like just a coming home and a safety there as well.
Okay.
Shortly after my breakthrough, I guess I sat down and reflected, what has it taken? Is it as simple as everybody having 1 or 2 doses of this worm? And you do need to continue it. I take it every 2 weeks, and I'll keep doing that because the benefits are tremendous. So I thought, can I really say that? I don't know. This isn't tested yet. So I was very excited to test. Can I take a few doses of worms and then boom, like everything is back on track, problem solved? Because I found a few of my friends who, and they're really switched on. They might be working in the health and wellness industry themselves. So I thought we'll just send them the product, and and see how they go, because I'm pretty sure they got their diet down, their lifestyle's pretty good. So I found that that didn't seem to work so well. They get some result to begin with and then kind of have questions about it later on, and discard it because they weren't seeing tangible immediate results. But we do find that it takes 3, even 6 months to really ground in the foundations there. So I just reflected on what my journey has been with my gut health over the last 8 years and what I had already done, so that it just was as simple as finding that last missing piece. So in my Heal Your Gut with Helminths, in my 3-month journey, first I reflected on the seasons, on autumn, and of the theme of clearing and cleansing in autumn. So I include some Ayurvedic cleansing techniques that are not well known but very powerful. And then winter, the winter phase, I call building, because it's about just getting really quiet, going inside and strengthening that little seed. And so we do emotional work, we do energy work, a journey through life with this intention of bringing wholeness and restoration to our body, to our gut. Yeah, and usually there's some other priorities and some other goals, other choices that we want to make about life. So, I guide the client through that journey into, weave the Helminths into the practice, as well as other lifestyle practices. And then, when it comes time for spring, I call that expanding, and summer is flourishing. So that's metaphorical. We always start in the autumn, and they're usually about 3 weeks, but it depends, because it's in no way a rigid program. There's some framework, and it's really a personal journey that I put together for my clients. So, we're running a few people through the 3-month journey, and the results have been really, like, physically amazing, and in terms of emotional and just heart stuff, and transitions in life, has just been really beautiful to be a part of.
Yeah. So the helmet therapy is just a small part of this program that you do with Sovereign Medicine. Is that correct? And then so like emotional and energy work, is this sort of like a journey to awakening or back to human nature? Is that the goal?
Yeah, I work with worms because they work. They get the result. They improve the ecosystem of the gut biome. They regulate the immune system. They balance your endocrine system, your hormones. It makes a powerful shift. So those are the external medicines that I bring in and that I share in my online dispensary. And while we're taking care of the body, I teach people how to listen to their body. And the key is to feeling your emotions.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we usually try to repress or suppress our feelings, to bottle them up, or we escape them through addictive behaviors or simply through busyness. And sometimes we vent them, but that simply releases some tension, and we feel justified in holding on to that story and to that negative energy. When we allow our feelings to be felt in the body with loving awareness, or simply just the willingness to feel it, the hidden wisdom of our body emerges, and we can truly grow. So this process allows the body to heal itself, because the body has built-in mechanisms of returning to balance, and it's simply our job to remove the blockages and to keep our natural energy flowing. So practicing yoga, breathing exercises, connection, time in nature, good relationships, great food, sex, healthy living, and sleep. Sleep is a big one. Getting enough good quality sleep. Yeah, which is another thing that I'm bringing some awareness and some exciting products and meditations out very soon on our website. And so basically, we start with my programs with that physical condition, but it allows us to deepen into understanding of ourselves, of our multidimensional
Mm.
nature, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever
The
else.
whole human.
The whole human. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to back up just a little bit. We've talked a little bit about healing. And when we first started, we talked a little bit about creativity and creation, and how that's feminine energy. How does creation play a role in healing, or does it?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, it absolutely does. So as I've said, we're the creators of our reality, and we're the ones telling the story. So yeah, I've also said that we interpret events and we create meaning. And because we're so powerful, we set up our lives to continually bring us circumstances that enforce our core beliefs that keep this thing running, this personality. And when we become conscious, or at least just conscious of that we're unconscious of something, that there's some kind of script that seems to be running our lives, then we can uncover our patterns and we can choose something different. And that's where the fun begins. So when we engage in creativity, then something comes alive in us that we don't have words for. And sometimes it's a feeling of rapture or synthesis, or maybe even synesthesia, where the senses bleed into one. But yeah, again, we're invited to fall in love with that process, because when we've repressed our creativity for a long time, there can be a sense of shame or clumsiness as we begin this sacred work of really being ourselves. So, in terms of the role that it plays in healing, we can create a disease state unconsciously through our thoughts and feelings. And we can also choose to uncreate that disease state once we gain awareness. The Taoist teacher and Qigong grandmaster Mantak Chia says, I like what he says about tending to your inner garden. He says that you can do some weeding from time to time, but it's more beneficial to plant more flowers. So in other words, if you notice hatred arising within you, it's actually okay to embrace that part of yourself. And when you do, you are generating feelings of compassion and self love, and thereby transmuting the hate into love.
Mm.
So often, when we uncover the long repressed creative part of our soul, physical healing occurs rapidly and spontaneously as our body is flooded with feeling good chemicals. So quantum physics actually verifies this. The work of Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. David Hawkins explains in great detail just the cascade, the flow of thought to feeling to electrical impulse, chemical release in the body that can create feeling good or feeling bad. So when we step into the driver's seat and take responsibility for what's showing up in our lives, we're acknowledging our role as the creator.
Gosh, I know, especially here in the Southern United States where I'm at, people might just say, oh, well, bad things happen to good people. And how dare you say that I had any role in creating my own disease or my own situation? What would you say to that? Because I love that you brought up quantum physics and I agree with what you're saying, but how do you get through to people who don't believe that?
That is a great question. How dare you? I suppose it takes willingness, and perhaps not everyone will get there. It's not to say that you're a bad person. You did something wrong, so you've attracted these set of circumstances, situations. Yeah, I don't know why things happen a certain way. I don't know why some people seem to come into life with an easier set of circumstances.
Mhm.
Great parents, wonderful upbringing, conscious, loving, supportive home. Yeah, and then other people come in with really difficult conditions, and why some people who have those difficult conditions go through them and emerge like naturally, like it's a natural initiation into life and into leadership. And yeah, why other people seem to be more sensitive to everything. And while the conditions may have it's all a judgment really on what is good and bad. Yeah, so some people, that have traumas or sensitivities or things that have made this story very strong. Perhaps like, yeah, a victim narrative. That's not to say that that's wrong,
Mhm.
because I have compassion for suffering, for people who suffer. And yeah, sometimes you can see that it is a program, like a thought program, a loop. And yeah, it can be challenging to show people, to give them a glimpse from outside. But I suppose if I was to answer this in one sentence, it would just to be whether, just try and see whether that perspective is valuable or not. Because yeah, if you're a victim of circumstances, then yeah, what can you do about it?
Mhm.
If you're the creator, then yeah, there may be something that you can do.
Oh, I like that.
You can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also you might discover something, and it might be like someone may die from the condition, from terminal cancer, and have the completion that they needed in their life, if they chose to connect, to wrestle, to dance and commune with, yeah, with that aspect of the journey. It might not be it's not necessarily a case of cleansing karma and the idea that you've done something wrong and you need to make up for it, or you need to understand, or because this happened you need to learn a specific lesson
Mhm.
as some kind of retribution. But yeah, it's I guess ultimately life is about letting go
Mhm.
as well, letting go of control, because we can have a story and a belief about life and death. For me, I can say I don't know. I don't know for sure. There's still yeah, plenty of fear and uncertainty about that. And perhaps as I get further into the journey, I'll learn a little bit more how to let go, surrender, and trust.
Mm. I think there's something to be said for letting go that helps you get into a natural flow of life, which bolsters creativity, which actually gives you some control over what's going on in your life, even if you're not controlling nature. I'm trying to make sense of the opposing ideas that, okay, you are the creator of your circumstances, or you can be, but at the same time, you have to let go.
Yeah, awesome. Great. I was following that sort of back and forth between, yeah, letting go, and but yeah, I'm with you. And what comes to mind is music.
Mm.
And I guess my journey back into music just in the last year really. Yeah, for the creativity to flow, for the inspiration, for that synesthesia, that good feeling, that oneness, or and especially when performing with others and co-creating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's like it's a dance, and if you can, kind of observe it, like sort of drop into the music's just flowing through me at the moment and just out of the mind, even for a moment. That's really cool.
Yeah.
However, yeah, just coming back into music after, which is something I was passionate about in my early 20s, and then kind of didn't really play much for 6 or 7 years. And I had a lot of creative wounds that I wasn't aware of, a lot of frustration, sort of ego stuff and insecurities that would come up in playing with other people. So yeah, coming back just for myself with no like career aspirations or anything. Yeah, I noticed that there was this old way of approaching music where I thought I need to know more and understand what's going on. I felt like I need some more kind of technique and theory training. Yeah, because I guess if you're just a fan of music and you go to a jazz gig, you'll be blown away. But the woman next to you might be a jazz musician herself, and because she understands the rules, the structures, and the way that these players are bending those rules, are interpreting the language, the music, the style, they're going to be appreciating it on this even deeper level. And I guess I discovered that when I was jamming with someone, we explored the concept of starting with the groove and then letting it just dissolve into chaos and being okay with that for a while. And then just trusting that, the groove, the solid bass line would emerge again without us knowing how or where it was going. Yeah, and this was kind of a life exploration as well, because sometimes I felt like I want to just let go and trust in life, and it feels like chaos because I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going to emerge. Sometimes I feel like then I grab for that control to bring some order to things, and I think that's probably good to do that as well. But yeah, in having that tangible experience with music, I saw that my life was already going through those cycles naturally of things slipping into chaos and then order emerging. And perhaps I'm not the one who's causing either of those circumstances. Perhaps I'm not causing chaos or order, but that is arising naturally.
Wow.
That allows me to kind of flow with it a little more gracefully and with a bit more trust.
Trust. Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. That's really important when you're, I would say, letting go and getting into creative flow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know our listeners are probably just dying to know where they can find all of your offerings, the program you talked about. Where do they go?
Yeah, cool. So that can go over to www.sovereignmedicine.com and you can check out. I have a podcast as well, so you can access that through the website. There's a blog. You can have a little browse of the services, the up and coming offers. Deep in Your Dreaming is a sleep tonic, a herbal tonic that we're working with at the moment, which is amazing. Yeah, and the online store as well. So for physical products, we can ship around the world.
Okay.
And for the gut healing program, I know most of your listeners are probably in the US, and at the moment, I have exclusively worked with an Australian client base. However, it will just be a matter of finding a lab in your area that produces the Helminths, and would set up a relationship with them because it needs to be sent out, and received in the same week.
Okay.
So you can, if you're interested in exploring the gut healing a little more, I can also offer a complimentary 30-minute consultation, which would be a chance to connect, to tune in, and to explore whether working together is a good fit, whether it resonates with both of us. So you can also send me an email, dan@sovereignmedicine.com, or there's more information on the website. But that's the hub, the healing hub that I run. So
Awesome.
So I appreciate your support and the opportunity to be of service.
Fantastic. And guys, all of that information, all the links that Dan mentioned throughout this whole episode and his offerings and website will be in the show notes. So make sure you go check that out. And Dan, it has been an absolute pleasure listening to your thoughts and philosophies, and I've enjoyed it. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brandy. It's been a real pleasure. Wonderful to connect with you and your crew.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and learn more at humanamplified.com.